Hi, I'm Bob Ostrom. I'm a children's book illustrator, and today we're going to be doing watercolors. So let's take a look at this little hamster I drew here. We're going to go ahead and start painting him in. So the first thing I want to do is just mix up a little paint. Now you see I've got a piece of paper here next to me, and I always test out my paint just before I put it on the real painting to make sure I've got my colors mixed right. So this looks pretty close to what I'm looking for. So let's go ahead. This is going to take a lot of paint, so I'm just going to mix up a little bit more here. So let's go ahead and start working on this guy here. Okay. We want to keep this nice and smooth, so I try to keep all the edges as wet as long as I can. I'll just paint right over this spot because I know that's going to be darker. But I'm going to skip the nose and the hands because those are going to be a different color. I don't want them to mix with this color because they won't look right if they do. So let's get a little more water in here. Okay. That's good. And if I go over the lines just a little bit, I'm not too worried about it. Okay, we'll bring this right around here. Okay. I'm going to leave it off the belly here because I want that belly color to be a little bit lighter than the rest of them. There we go. That looks pretty good right there. I'll bring that down around the bottom here. Okay, and I can just sort of pull some of this paint over onto that side. Grab a little more. I can see it's starting to dry up in here, so I got to be quick. Otherwise I'm going to get some weird lines in there. There we go. Get that down right in there like that. Okay, and I'm going to leave this alone up here and just sort of add a little more color down here because I don't want to disturb what's in here. I like the way that I've got a nice smooth wash up here. If I go back in here and I start to mess with it, I'm gonna ruin that smooth wash that I've got. So the color will start to change up and you'll see some hard lines in there, and that's not what I want. I want to keep it nice and smooth. So pull this down in here like that. Okay. And so be careful not to pool up too much water down here. Same thing will happen is when it dries, it'll start to make some hard shapes, and I want to keep it nice and smooth. Okay. So let's give that a second to dry, and I'll be right back. Now that that's all dry, I'm going to go ahead and start working with some new colors here. I'm going to do a little pink for his nose. Let's put a little bit of yellow in that. Just a little bit. Test it out over here. It looks just about right. Pretty close. There we go. So I'm going to just give him a pink nose. I think it needs to be more pink than that. What do you think? A little bit more? There we go. Ooh, that's pink. All right. So sometimes if I get a little bit too much in there, I can just dry my brush off and pick it up. Okay. Or if there was way too much in there, I would just take a paper towel and just sort of blot it like that. But that's not too bad. So I'm going to just take and put a little more color back in there. There we go. That looks just about right. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that that doesn't bleed out over there, so I just pick that up with a dry brush. Okay, and now I've got to color in his hands and his feet. And those will be sort of a pinkish color too, but I want a little bit more yellow in those. So let's grab that. Test that out over there. A little bit more yellow, I think. That looks about right. So I'll go ahead and throw that on there for his hand. Okay. I've got a little blob there, so let's pick that up. That's good. I'll use the same color for his feet. if I want to have it look like the shadow's done at the bottom, I'll just dab my brush down here and leave a little extra color down at the bottom there. And because that's wet, it'll sort of seep in together and form a nice little gradation for me. Okay, so let's get some more of that color. Looks about right. We'll do this foot over here. There we go. And again, I want more color down at the bottom of the foot, so I'll just sort of dab at that and leave the color down there. Okay. I've got to do his tail and his ears and his other hand, so we'll mix up a little bit more of that color. I'll work on this guy right here. Okay, that looks about right. Put a little color on his tail. And then we'll do his ears next. So once I have the basic shape filled in, if I want to put a little more color in it, I can just dab it and leave more pigment in there, or add a little bit more to it and just throw it in on top. And so you can see I'm sort of pushing it towards the bottom a little bit because that's where I want the darker color to be, is towards the bottom of these shapes. You can see it, how it sets up over here. Okay, so we're going to make his belly just a little bit lighter than the rest of him. So I'm going to use mostly yellow for that. And a little bit of this ochre color here. And that's pretty similar to the color that's on the rest of him. So what I'll do is I'll just add a little bit more water to it, and that'll lighten it up. Okay, so I throw down my color there, and now I'm just going to paint with water on top of that to move it around. And I use a paper towel to control how wet my brush is. If my brush is too wet, I can just touch the paper towel with it, and that'll pick up some of the pigment and some of the water too. And that way I can kind of adjust how much goes on here. Okay, just put a little bit more right in that range right there. Okay, now he needs a dark spot on his back, and I think that's going to be this color right here. We'll make that just a little bit darker by adding some brown to it. Some deep brown here. A little bit of this right there. And I'm losing that nice red color, so I'll just put a touch of that in there. Okay, how's that look? Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay. Let's go ahead and paint in that spot back here. Okay. So we want to keep that moving around so that the wash sets up nice and smooth for me. There's a lot of pigment floating around in that one there, so. There we go. That looks pretty good. And I want to make it a little bit darker towards the back and the bottom, so I'm just going to add a little bit here. Throw it in while it's wet. Like that. Okay, and that'll smooth itself out in a second. Okay, so let's put in a little bit of background around this guy. Use a little bit of this color, a bit of purple, just kind of throw it underneath him here. Don't need too much of that. That'll be sort of our shadow color right there. Okay, and let's see if I can take this brush and just push it around just a little bit. I got to be careful not to get into any of my wet areas or they'll bleed right out into that. So let me take a little bit of blue in there too. Okay. Get a little bit more purple right under here. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry and then we'll come right back and do a little bit of line work on that guy. So now that our paint is dry, we're going to go ahead and throw in some line art. I'm going to start with this thinner pen here and just focus on some of the thin lines to start with. And I'm not too worried here about the pencil lines because the marker will cover all those up. And if I leave any behind, I can always go back in with my trusty kneaded eraser and take those out. So let's grab our brush here and our brush pen and we'll make some thicker lines out here. And I'm going to just keep these sort of jaggy so that it looks like he's a furry little guy. Okay, same thing up here. Look nice and furry. Great. Okay. Now we've got to get his toes in. I'll be a little more careful on these lines because we don't want his feet to look furry. But we do want his body to look furry. Okay. Let's put in his other paw up here. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's move these around just a little bit here. Great. Just going to put a little more weight on that outside line there. His ear is going to be nice and smooth. Throw a little inside part on that ear. I feel like he needs a couple little hairs up there. There we go. That looks much better. All right, and we're going to keep this line right here smooth because that's his other paw. That comes down in there like this. And this part will be furry right here. Okay. Looks like we're missing a finger. Let's throw another little finger in there. There we go. Here's his toes. Again, keeping these lines smooth. There we go. Okay. Tail will be smooth too. Okay, and then let's just put a little furry shape around this guy here. This one here doesn't have to be smooth either. Okay, and then this shape, same deal. We're going to make this one be kind of furry here too. Let's bring that down around here like this. Okay, now let's just add a little bit of detail to this guy. Whoops, we almost forgot this ear up here. Nice and smooth around there. I'll just throw a little bit more detail here and there. A little bit of texture on this guy. I feel like he needs some whiskers. Okay, and then a couple more on this side. Okay, and then we'll just sort of make it look like he's sitting on something here. Maybe we'll make his whiskers look like they're twitching. Okay, and there you have it. Thanks for joining me. I'm Bob Ostrom. If you'd like to see more, check out my DVD on how to draw animals, or visit my website at bobostromstudio.com.